Good evening, it's 8 o'clock. The top headlines tonight. Well, CCTV footage of Parliament clashes are released. And look at the MPs clashing with marshals. 8 ministers hold a press conference to take on opposition leaders as opposition leaders of 15 parties say there's been a murder of democracy in the House. Meanwhile, a fresh row as Twitter blocks the official Congress accounts and that of many other Congress leaders. India crosses 40,000 cases daily again, driven mainly by the Kerala cases. Meanwhile, the United States is now at over 130,000 cases daily. Industrial production rises in June, this measured against last year when the numbers were much lower. Also, food inflation is down and fuel prices also down slightly in what the RBI considers acceptable inflation. ISRO's latest launch today is an unexpected failure. ISRO chief says it's a technical anomaly in the cryogenic stage. Well, code red on climate change warned a recent UN report. And let's look at the extreme rain in Uttar Pradesh. Thousands of villages are currently submerged as parts of UP get 1,500 times the normal rainfall. Our lead story tonight, well, Parliament, our temple of democracy, is now really where fist fights are taking place. Today's CCTV footage was released via the government of the clashes that took place on the House floor yesterday during the insurance bill. Just look at those visuals. As you can see there, MPs and marshals are clashing. The opposition says that House marshals were brought in and women MPs were roughed up, but the government says the CCTV footage shows opposition MPs pushing a woman marshal to the floor. Whatever the CCTV footage was, it's a little bit unclear, but you can see the absolute chaos inside. But the point remains that this is happening in what is the House of Elders, the Rajya Sabha, at a time the insurance bill was being passed. And this is not what democracy is meant to be all about. Sharp lines drawn today as 8 ministers took on the opposition, as 15 opposition parties held protests outside Parliament today.
This CCTV footage of a scuffle inside the Rajya Sabha has been released to counter what the government calls a negative propaganda being spread by the opposition. The opposition's Sharad Pawar alleged that outsiders were brought in disguised as marshals and manhandled MPs, including women.
They tried to forcibly open the door by breaking the glass. शीशा तोड़ के अंदर आने का कोशिश किया. एक महिला कर्मचारी को घायल हो गए. And she has given in writing.
In fact, the government had this briefing by 8 cabinet ministers barely an hour after this protest by the opposition ended. The march was led by Rahul Gandhi, who protested against the voice of the opposition being curtailed and Modi using the Pegasus software to invade privacy, and marched outside Parliament. The notable absentees in the opposition were the Trinamool Congress and the Aam Aadmi Party.
पहली बार राज्यसभा में सांसदों की पिटाई की गई है. बाहर से लोगों को बुलाकर नीली वर्दी में डालकर सांसदों को धक्का मुक्की मारपीट की गई. वाइस चेयरमैन को दुख हो रहा है. चेयरमैन की क्या जिम्मेदारी है? The voice of 60% of this country has been crushed, humiliated.
Government has suo motu come out with a statement. There is an established practice in the Rajya Sabha that after the minister's statement, members are allowed to seek clarifications, raise any questions. It would have given ample opportunity to everybody. They did not take that opportunity.
The Congress stands exposed as a party devoid of any agenda, as a party which does not care for the people of India.
The government's response came after the opposition leaders from the Rajya Sabha met and complained to the chairperson of the Rajya Sabha. Mr. Naidu denied any outsiders were permitted in the House. Separately, Twitter suspended hundreds of Congress Twitter accounts, including Rahul Gandhi's, for what it called as violative of Indian laws and its own policies. Twitter says it did so on a complaint by the Child Right Protection Committee. Gandhi had tweeted a picture of the parents of a 9-year-old rape and murder victim in Delhi. The Congress and the Trinamool Congress attacked both Twitter and the government for stopping the freedom of speech, with some Congress leaders pointing out that the BJP had tweeted the identity and faces of a similar case and the tweet is still on.
Dealing with Twitter to try and get that resolved. As far as I'm concerned, no social media outfit should actually be in the business of interfering with freedom of expression in our country. Laws will be respected, must be respected.
With both the opposition and the government attacking each other, a new low has been reached. And both understand that if Parliament has to function, they have to be able to find a resolution before the next session. With camera person Ashok Mahle and Azam, Sunil Prabhu, NDTV.
But let's now move really to the huge international story which has a major impact for India. This as the Taliban has taken over the 10th provincial capital of Ghazni, which is just 80 kilometers out of Kabul. Srinivasan joins us more. Vasu, what are the implications of Ghazni falling just 80 miles from Kabul?
It's deeply worrying, Sonia, because as we've seen, the Taliban have been advancing with lightning speed. They've managed to capture 9 provincial capitals in just a matter of 7 days. And Ghazni particularly is crucial because it falls along the crucial Kandahar-Kabul highway. And as we know, Kandahar is the Taliban hotbed. So it allows the insurgents a much more direct line to Kabul, which is why now the concern that Kabul could be on the brink of collapse. We already heard about that US leaked intelligence report said that Kabul could fall anywhere in up to 90 days. And I think this is something which is both bewildering and alarming everyone who has a stake in the Afghanistan game, because everybody knew that once the US pulled out, the Afghan army forces will struggle to resist the Taliban, but nobody expected it would be this fast, that already you have close to 2/3 of the country virtually under Taliban control, and there's just now a handful of key cities which are still under the regime control. And I think this is something which has deeply concerning implications for the rest of the world and for India.
And in fact, Srinivasan, I'm just going to play that uncut, the Ministry of External Affairs. And then if you just look at the implications, as you said, for India and what Taliban rule actually means for Afghanistan, in this case, again, Pakistan very strongly backing it. Let's just listen to what the Ministry of External Affairs said today.
We had here a high-level visitor a few days ago, Mutlaq bin Majid Al-Khatani, Special Envoy of the Foreign Minister of Qatar for Counterterrorism and Mediation of Conflict Resolution. He had also extended an invitation to India to participate in a meeting in Doha today, 12th, which actually we have participating, our Joint Secretary looking after Pakistan, Afghanistan and Iran. On the security situation, look, it is of concern. It is a rapidly evolving situation. We are supporting all peace initiatives in Afghanistan. We are in touch with all stakeholders, various stakeholders. And इससे ज़्यादा मैं अभी कुछ कहना नहीं चाहूँगा.
Let's just look at the latest COVID numbers. Now again, India has crossed over 40,000 cases in just about 2 days. Remember on Tuesday we were below 30,000. The main reason they've gone up so much, of course, is the Kerala numbers. The deaths in the last 24 hours are 490. The daily positivity rate is still at 24 hours. And the vaccinations is up. It's 53,89,960. That's good news. But remember, that would be nearly 1 lakh now to reach our target of vaccinating all adults. And globally is where the huge surge is happening again, mainly because the Delta variant. The United States is now at 1,34,000 cases. Remember again, their population much less than India, so you can imagine how many people are infected there currently. India is, as we said, over 41,000. France rising again, over 32,000 cases. Brazil also, and the United Kingdom at over 29,000 cases. Well, a look at some other headlines today. Various judicial minds coming together for the farewell ceremony of Justice Nariman.
A farewell in the Supreme Court lawns for Justice Rohinton Fali Nariman after 7 years as a top court judge. Son of top lawyer Fali Nariman, he was designated senior lawyer at the young age of 37. At the farewell, the Chief Justice of India spoke highly of Justice Nariman.
The amount of work we put as judges, day in and out, there exists a misconception in the minds of the people that judges stay in a big bungalows, work only 10 to 4 in the day, enjoy their holidays. Such a narrative is untrue. Brother Nariman's retirement, I feel like I am losing one of the lions that guarded the judicial institution.
Justice Nariman thanked everyone.
I can't say that I have enjoyed every minute of being a judge. It's been very hard work. Certainly enjoyed writing judgments. But At the end of it all, it's worked out well. I believe there is a legitimate expectation in the people of India and the litigating public to get a certain quality of justice from this final court. For that, it is very clear merit must predominate.
Justice Nariman's judgments stand out. He struck down Section 66A of the IT Act 2000, saying it invaded right of free speech. His recent judgment warned politicians to wake up from slumber to decriminalize politics. To stop custodial deaths, he directed the installation of CCTVs at police stations, the CBI and NIA offices. Justice Nariman was part of the bench which allowed women to visit the Sabrimala temple. With Justice Nariman's retirement, the top court's strength will be reduced to 25 with 9 vacancies. One more judge is to retire on the 18th of this month, taking the vacancies to 10. Now the focus will shift to the Chief Justice of India, Justice N.V. Ramana, as the head of the collegium of top 5 judges. Will he recommend names to the government? With Sukirti Dwivedi, A. Vaidyanathan and Sanjay Kaushik, Anusya Mathur for NDTV.
Well, a quick look at some numbers. Industrial production has risen to 13.6% in June. June's sharp rise, of course, measured against the crash last year. Also, retail inflation has also dipped below the RBI's red line, so some good news there. The July retail inflation at 5.59 versus 6.26% in June. So, the July inflation within the RBI's band of 4% plus minus 2%. The markets also surging to record highs after 2 days of sluggish trading today. Let's just look at the latest numbers. The markets up by over 318 points and the Nifty up by 82 points. Well, an unexpected failure at the launch of ISRO's latest satellite. But the reasons Dr. Sivan said is because of a technical anomaly.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
After a 26-hour countdown, GSLV Mark II rocket carrying a new generation Earth observation satellite took off from the Satish Dhawan Space Center at Sriharikota at 5:43 a.m. on Thursday morning.
These are the flight parameters on your TV screen.
Stage 1 and Stage 2 were smooth, but 5 minutes after liftoff, the cryogenic engine in Stage 3 failed to ignite, and soon the announcement came that the mission could not be accomplished fully due to performance anomaly.
UIS-3 mission could not be fully accomplished, mainly because there is a technical anomaly observed in cryogenic stage. This I wanted to tell to all my friends.
A failure assessment committee will now formally probe what went wrong. Experts say cryogenic technology is extremely challenging as it involves using liquid hydrogen and oxygen at temperatures hundreds of degrees below zero to propel heavier rockets like GSLV to carry heavier payloads. This was the 14th launch involving a GSLV rocket and a 4th failure. The last failure was in 2010. For ISRO, this was the 2nd mission this year. In February, ISRO had placed Earth observation satellites in orbit on behalf of Brazil. The EOS-03 satellite, meant to have been put into a geostationary orbit today, had been meant to give real-time images of natural disasters like cyclones and thunderstorms, and also forest cover, water bodies and vegetation. The EOS-02 was meant to have been launched in September-October. Many other GSLV missions are also coming up, and hopefully their schedule will not suffer because of today's setback. In Hyderabad, Uma Sudhir, NDTV.
A worsening flood situation in UP. 1,200 villages are now under water, up from 350 on Monday. Across 23 of Uttar Pradesh's 75 districts. The worst affected is eastern UP's Mirzapur district, where a resident filmed this massive concrete block floating down the Ganga river today. 487 villages are flooded and water levels in the Ganga are rising.
लोग अपना सामान किसी तरह से नाव की व्यवस्था करके और सामान निकाल करके बाहर ले जा रहे हैं, उसी तरह से अपने गाय, बैल, बछड़े को भी निकाल करके बाहर ले जा रहे हैं.
There's worry in eastern UP's Prayagraj, where rain was 1200% above average for a 24-hour period ending Wednesday morning. Nearby, Chitrakoot on the MP border saw 1500% excess rain. In Prayagraj, home to the Sangam or the confluence of the Ganga and Yamuna rivers, both rivers are flooded and water levels are rising. Satellite images are stark.
जैसा कि आप देख भी रहे होंगे, एसडीआरएफ की टीम हमें लगी हुई है, एनडीआरएफ की टीम लगी हुई है और हमने जो हमारे शरणालय हैं उनको भी एक्टिवेट कर दिया है। करीब 9 शरणालय हमारे एक्टिव हैं, जिसमें लगभग अभी 2500 लोगों को सुरक्षित स्थानों पर शिफ्ट किया गया है। उनकी पूरी देखभाल की जा रही है।
Flood waters have entered many localities in PM Modi's Lok Sabha seat, Varanasi, especially those by the Ganga, prompting a phone call by the PM to local authorities on Wednesday, assuring all possible help. UP Chief Minister Adityanath today went to flood-affected areas in the city and distributed relief material, with images of Prime Minister Modi and the Chief Minister on them. So far, the UP government says things are not out of control, but the next few days are crucial and the government is monitoring rainfall data to look for signs that things could get worse. With Indresh Pandey, Nitin Gupta and camera person Vineet Verma, this is Alok Pandey, NDTV.
And as we end a red carpet welcome at Guwahati for India's boxing sensation, Lavlina Borgohain.
A euphoric, emotional welcome for Lavlina Borgohain. As she got off the aircraft, the first hug from the Chief Minister, who adorned her with the traditional Japi and Gomasa as Bihu music played, almost drowning her choked voice. Lavlina is Assam's first Olympic medalist and the government is showering her with gifts for the honor she has brought to the state.
Lavlina Borgohain, Ahom Pulisot, DSP, Sakorit, Jogdan Koribole Ami, Nimantron Janaisu. Paris Olympic Khelaloike, Koti Mahot, 1 lakh toka koi, Rajya Sarkare scholarship agbohabo. Iar uporiu Lavlinaৰ জীৱনৰ সৈতে জড়িত 28 কেজন প্ৰশিক্ষকক 10 লাখকৈ টকাৰ বাবেও দিয়াৰ আমি সিদ্ধান্ত লৈছো।
Baro Mukhia, Lavlina's village may have to wait to welcome her back. However, some 400 kilometers east of Guwahati, it is a 6-hour drive away. She may not be able to go there this time. She has to return to New Delhi for Independence Day. With Ratandeep Chaudhary in Guwahati, Usama Shab for NDTV.